attention, please.
Uproar erupts at the Tokyo Gymnasium as Karasuno is declared the winner. Both Hinata and Keijama are still frozen with disbelief, but they are soon enveloped by their celebrating teammates. Despite being exhausted, the two still finds time to bicker over who gets credit for the last block. On the audience stands, the Nakoma players leave with solemn expressions after finally seeing their rivals advance to the next round. Back in Miyagi, Coach Enabara calls Washijo's cell phone out of overexcitement. Washijo answers the call and reveals he saw the match before Enabara can even explain his reason for calling. The two teams pay their proper respect to each other. After greeting Keijama, Atsumu calls out to Hinata. Atsumu boldly claims he will one day be tossing to Hinata, but before that he will crush the duo at Inter-High. Afterwards, both teams go to thank their supporters for cheering for them. As Inarizaki prepares to leave, the twins prepare to apologize for rushing their last play. Hida cuts them off and tells him to only apologize when they really mean it. He reveals he doesn't think their last play is a mistake because the last hit error is on Karasuno. Despite losing, Kita is happy that his teammates finally met worthy opponents. The twins are surprised to find Kita's usual stoic expression replaced with a smile. Kita ultimately admits that he is frustrated since he wants to be proud of his teammates a little longer. As the rest of Inarizaki tears up, the twins declare they will be juniors Kita can always be proud of. Meanwhile, Karasuno returns to the bag storage room to collect their belongings. The players are so tired that many are dozing off right in the midst of their activities. However, Hinata, who is usually the first one to pass out, is awake and fully alert. Tsukishima notices his and thinks to himself that he might just have witnessed Hinata's moment on this very day. Bokuto spikes through blockers with a powerful spike, earning the match victory for Fukurodani. He goes to check the tournament bracket and is surprised to find that Karasuno took down the Miya brothers. Bokuto's teammates seem to have already realized Karasuno's win when the crowd went wild before, but Bokuto is so focused on his own match that he paid no attention. Akashi is seemingly glad to find Bokuto's condition improving but quickly stopped thinking positivity just in case he jinxes it. Day 2 of the spring tournament ends, and most seeded schools advance to the next round. The two spectators, Genta Okuda and Hiromi Takanashi, leave the stadium saying they are about to become Karasuno's fans. They find out that Karasuno's next opponent is Nakoma, whom they say is a boring team. Akane just happens to overhear their conversation and feels offended at their words. Back at Karasuno's lodging, the team gathers in front of the TV to watch themselves on TV. The members end up either being embarrassed, overjoyed, or shocked at their own appearances. Ultimately, the team breaks out in laughter over each other as they take a nicely deserved break after an intense match. The scene switches to Bokuto and Akashi standing outside of their hotel, watching the night scenery. Bokuto says he will keep playing volleyball even after he graduates, but he really wishes he could play more with his current teammates. His words greatly puzzle Akashi, who assures him that they still have plenty of time together in this tournament. Bokuto firmly agrees and says they will win it all. Afterwards, Akashi ushers Bokuto inside to prevent him from catching an illness. At this time, the Karasuno third years are standing on the balcony pondering over their match. They reflect on amazing their juniors are, but ultimately decide they don't want to lose to them. Meanwhile, the managers in the first years are taking their bath. Hinata is still overly excited after their match and can't wait to play another one, earning a comment of disgust from Tsukishima. Team Nakoma is also watching the sports broadcast on TV. Yaku and Yamamoto are both dissatisfied with how the commentaries make Nakoma sounds like the lesser team compared to Karasuno. Kenma remains indifferent as he points out the fact that Karasuno indeed took down many strong opponents. However, this doesn't really matter since both teams came all the way to nationals to determine which one is the better one in a proper match. Back with Karasuno, Hinata declares that he wants to defeat Kenma even if Kenma doesn't care about the outcome of a match. Both Karasuno and Nakoma are ready and looking forward to their fated battle. Ike and Nekomata first met during a match in their middle school years. As he played on the court, Ike noticed Nekomata with the slouch observing him quietly. Once Nekomata was subbed in, Ike found difficulty scoring due to Nekomata reading and cleanly receiving his every attack. Later, Nekomata thanked Ike for letting him look good on the court, an act that made Ike determined to crush Nekomata in their next match. This first meeting started a trend of Ike challenging Nekomata until Nekomata relocated to Tokyo. However, Ike was undeterred and trained diligently so that he can beat Nekomata if they ever meet again. In their second year of high school, Ike and Nekomata's teams both made it to nationals, and the two restarted their rivalry. Ultimately, they were unable to play together in an official match after their respective teams lost before they could face each other. Nevertheless, Ike persisted in challenging Nekomata, who gladly accepted his challenge. The two never had another chance to stand on the national stage after that. Eventually, both became coaches at their respective alma maters, Nekoma and Karasuno. They would organize practice matches whenever they had the chance and aim to make the dumpster battle happen at the nationals. Yet, the opportunity never came and both retired 5 years before the present time. Fast forward to the start of the current school year, Takeda makes a call to Nekomata to arrange a practice match between the two rival teams. It's the day 3 of the spring tournament. The long-awaited matchup between Karasuno and Nekoma is about to begin as players take their place. Coach Naai is excited about the upcoming match, but Nekomata reminds them that this isn't the reason Nekoma came to nationals. It's just that there are more people looking forward to this matching, including himself. In a hospital room, Ike watches the match with his students from a live broadcasting television. Haikyuu and Daichi come forward to do the proper captain handshake. Haikyuu tries to provoke Daichi by bringing up all the penalties that Karasuno did during the summer training camp, while Daichi responds with a thanks accompanied by a bone-crushing handshake. As the players and coaches are introduced, Ike happily brags about his grandson to his students, other patients present, and nurses. When a student asks him if he regrets not being there in person, Ike denies having any regret. Even though his name may not be listed, his disciples and his bloodline are present, which is something he can't be more happy about. Back on the court, the current coach Yukai recalls his grandpa's words about not forcing his own will onto his players. Yukai thinks that the current Nekoma and Karasuno players are standing here on their own will. They are destined rivals in their own right instead of fighting a battle for the sake of pleasing their elders. As such, Yukai sincerely hopes his grandpa will be able to enjoy this match to his heart's content. The two teams officially greet each other as the match commences. Yamamoto calls out to Kenma inquiring about whether they could defeat the Demon and Club combo, Kajama and Hinata. Kenma, who is recognized as a player concerned only with the objectivity of facts, ultimately replies he doesn't know. As the dumpster battle gets underway, students from Nekoma High School come to support their volleyball team. Most of them are unfamiliar with the sport and are surprised to find out who made up the team's roster. On Karasuno's side, Daichi gives a final pep talk telling his teammates to forget about their previous losses to Nekoma since they are here to win. Meanwhile, Nekoma recites their trademark chant before every match. Finally, the two captains shout out their determination to win, signaling the start of the long-awaited match. The match begins with Kajama hitting a strong serve with a nice trajectory. However, Kai easily receives it and cleanly returns it to the setter. Kenma wastes no time in tossing a quick to Lev. Karasuno reacts in time to put up a two-man block, forcing Lev to hit a straight. Nishinoya saves the spike and Kajama follows up with a high toss to Tanaka. Faced with two blockers, Tanaka chooses to hit a super inner cross. Yamamoto successfully saves the ball but ends up returning the ball too close to the net. Hinata attempts to reach the ball, but Lev beats him to it by pushing the ball down toward Karasuno's side. Daichi makes a clutch save while Hinata immediately prepares a run-up for their signature minus tempo. In that brief moment, there is a flashback to Hinata's first meeting with Kenma, Karasuno losing to Nekoma in those first practice matches, and Kenma's nonchalant response when Hinata questions him about his love for volleyball. Determined to make his friend love volleyball, Hinata aims his spike at Kenma with conviction. It deflects off of Kenma's arms and Karasuno scores the first point off of an intense rally that left even the live commentary in the dust. While everybody is applauding the spectacular play, Hinata challenges Kenma, reminding him that this is the match where there's no second chances. Players from Shinzen and Yubugawa, teams present during the summer training camp, arrive to support their friends in their match. They express their desire of wanting to be the ones playing but are nonetheless proud of how far Nekoma and Karasuno have come. Just then, they hear a commotion and are amazed to find Karasuno scoring the first point with their signature quick attack. While Karasuno celebrates, Nekoma grows more wary since they are fully aware of how dangerous that quick can be. In the audience, Alisa is shocked by the quick. Akane tries to convince herself that the minus tempo isn't invincible with its reliance on sheer speed, but she can't help getting excited at seeing the quick. Okuda and Takanashi believe they might have underestimated Nekoma after seeing their skillful receives off of Kajama's serve and Tanaka's inner cross. However, they still attribute it to a fluke until Kai cleanly receives Kajama's powerful jump serve for the second time. The ball is cleanly returned to Kenma, who quickly tosses to Lev. Lev hits the toss above Hinata and Tanaka's blocks, allowing Nekoma to tie Karasuno. In the next rotation, Kiryu enters the front row while Lev prepares to serve. Taka now notices that Nekoma is no longer using the dedicated shift formation they utilized in their first practice match. The scene then shifts to Nekoma preparing for their match against Karasuno the night before. Kenma realizes that Hinata has changed enough that a dedicated shift is no longer the most effective counter strategy. He reminds the team that Hinata won't always be jumping out right from the beginning. but they still have to be prepared for the minus tempo quick. Kiryu quickly figures out that Hinata is actually using the existence of the minus tempo as a decoy, while the rest of Nekoma stresses over how much Karasuno has evolved since their last practice match just a few months prior. As he listens to all the discussion, Shibayama is reminded of Coach Nekomata's words about the oddball duo and their potential to change from the demon and his club to demon and demon. Back to the match, Lev accidentally hits his serve into the net but gets a net in. Hinata reacts just in time to save the ball. Kajama follows up with a toss to Daichai, who approaches from the left with a long-distance spike. Lev manages to receive it but ends up returning the ball over the net. As Hinata prepares to push the ball over, Kiryu spikes the ball directly at Kajama. Kajama is forced to make the first touch, thus preventing Karasuno from using their varied attacks. However, Nishinoya quickly jumps forward to make a toss to Asahi. Asahi hits a powerful spike that sends the ball flying off as it ricochets off the blocker's hands. The coaches and players from Nekoma can't help but be amazed at Karasuno's incredible progress compared to the start of the year. With a personal understanding of Karasuno's current strength, Kiryu ponders over how they can defeat them. Asahi scores off a libero toss from Nishinoya, further showing off Karasuno's ability to attack anywhere and everywhere. The commentators praise Nishinoya for seeking skills outside of his defense specialist role, while Shinzen's captain, Daiki, recalls Nishinoya's first clumsy attempt at a toss back during the summer training camp. The match continues with Tanaka hitting a jump serve. Kai receives the serve but returns it a bit short to Kenma. As Kenma moves under the falling ball for a toss, Hinata tries to read for any sign, giving away who Kenma will toss to. Hinata almost gets baited when Kenma glances at Yamamoto before remembering Kajama's warning about Kenma's glance feints. Hinata manages to stop himself from being tricked, but it delayed him enough that he couldn't react in time to block when Kenma tosses to Kiryu on the opposite side instead. Nekoma once again ties Karasuno. In the audience, Akashi says that players end up hyper-aware of Kenma's movements since he moves so little in the first place. The Nekoma players and coaches know better though. They are aware that Kenma is unusually fired up and has more finesse in his movements. Coach Nekomata is happy to see this development but hopes that Kenma doesn't shut down midway through the game. Karasuno continues their relentless attacks on Nekoma. Asahi spikes past two blockers only to be received by Kenma. The ball returns to Karasuno, and Hinata spikes it. This time, Yaku receives the spike but the ball flies back to Karasuno's side again. Asahi takes this chance and hits a direct spike. However, Yamamoto lands a touch, giving his team a chance to keep the ball in play. The rally continues until Asahi finally pulls off a successful block out. Nekoma is putting up an impressive defense against Karasuno's heavy barrage of attacks, but Karasuno continues to break through. Akashi is quick to realize that it would be disastrous for Nekoma to get behind by too many points before they are properly warmed up. In the next rotation, Tsukishima rotates in. Kiryu thinks to himself that he likes Nekoma's reputation as the defensive guardians, but that doesn't mean that they are a passive team. As Nekoma goes on the offensive, everybody is shocked to find them attempting a first-tempo synchronized attack. Tsukishima's brother Akitaru rushes to join the rest of the Karasuno supporters after coming in late from work. He questions the other alumni about their work and finds out that they have planned ahead to take leave of absence. Nekoma prepares for a first-tempo synchronized attack. Tsukishima intently observes Kenma's toss and lands a one-touch on Kai's spike. Hinata follows up with the first touch and joins in with the rest with their own synchronized attack. Kiryu is quick to deduce where the toss will go and manages a kill block on Daichai's spike. The Nekoma crowd celebrates Kiryu's block point while others respond with both frustration and amazement. The commentators point out that both schools use synchronized attacks, but both sides have also put up strong blocks to thwart each other. Meanwhile, the players from Shinzen and Yubigawa are surprised to find Nekoma prioritizing their offense but quickly recognize that both teams are omnivorous in playing style. Sugawara is amazed that Kiryu can keep up with their 5-man attack on the first try, but Hinata remains unsurprised. Hinata is fully aware of Kiryu's capability and credits him as the teacher of Tsukishima's persistent blocks. On the court, Kiryu provokes Tsukishima by pointing out that his hands are positioned too high up, causing the ball to blow right through instead of being shut down completely. The match resumes as Asahi breaks through a 2-man block from Nekoma only to have his spike cleanly received by Yaku. Nekoma then successfully counters with a spike from Fukunaga, allowing Nekoma to tie with Karasuno for -4. The commentators praise Kiryu for successfully restricting the course for the receivers. They recognize him as someone who, despite not being an incredibly outstanding player, is key to his team's high-caliber defense. Eventually, Hinata rotates in. He attempts to score but is forced to spike toward Fukunaga's direction when Kiryu limits his course. In the audience, Suguru is quick to notice that Nekoma is overperforming. He says that Nakoma is a team that falls behind early on as they analyze the opponents before steadily catching up in the second half, but that they are currently keeping up with a high artillery team like Karasuno. After a few more back-and-forth plays, Hinata manages to score. As Tsukishima rotates into the front row, Sugawara passionately urges him not to lose to Kiryu. In response, Tsukishima calmly says that he would never be able to overcome Kiryu's superior abilities alone. At the same time, Yamaguchi is switched in as a pinch server, even as he considers that a powerful server like Kejama has yet to score a single service ace. Yamaguchi is determined to make an impact on the game. Kiryu remarks that it looks like Yamaguchi wants to succeed all on his own. Instead of being surprised, Tsukishima acknowledges that Yamaguchi has long since become his own man. Yamaguchi targets his first serve at Yamamoto, who tries to save it with an underhand receive. The floater shifts direction just before contact, resulting in the ball flying off of Yamamoto's arm. This widens Karasuno's lead to 3 points, and Nakoma is forced to take their first timeout. Once the match resumes, Yamaguchi aims his second serve in between Yamamoto and Kai. Kai manages to cleanly return the ball to Kenma, but both Kai and Yamamoto are taken out of Nakoma's offense. Yamaguchi gets annoyed at not being able to do more, but Tsukishima thinks it's more than enough. With only Kiryu and Fukunaga available for a first tempo attack, Tsukishima quickly reads Kenma's toss and puts up a powerful block that shuts down Fukunaga's spike. With this, Tsukishima and Yamaguchi have successfully executed their serve and block combo. While everybody marvels at the block, Tsukishima and Yamaguchi reflect over all their past experiences starting from their very first meeting. Yamaguchi has changed from chasing after Tsukishima to overtaking him and then giving Tsukishima the necessary push forward when he stayed stagnant. Tsukishima and Yamaguchi high-five each other in high spirits as they are finally standing shoulder to shoulder as teammates. Just then, Kiryu approaches Tsukishima and questions him about his feelings for volleyball. Tsukishima remembers his experiences during the summer training camp and all the advice he has received from the third gym members. He expresses his thanks and admits that he now occasionally enjoys playing volleyball. Yaku cleanly receives Yamaguchi's third serve, ending Yamaguchi's serve streak. It's Kiryu's turn to serve, and he gets a service ace right off the bat. Karasuno takes their first timeout. During the break, Yamaguchi reflects on his performance. Although his third serve missed, the first and second went just as planned. He feels his heart beating quickly as he recalls his practice sessions with Shimada and becomes determined. After the timeout, Kiryu hits his second serve, but Daichai makes a perfect receive that ends with Tsukishima scoring. After a few rallies, Kinoshita notices that their spikes are getting past Lev more easily than usual, but Tsukishima realizes that Lev's play has become less reckless. Back on the court, Hinata is about to hit a spike before he notices Lev's block restricting its pathway. Hinata adjusts the direction in the last second to hit a straight, but still finds it received by Fukunaga. Nakoma uses their synchronized attack once again with Yamamoto scoring for the team. With the score at 14:15, Nakoma is gradually catching up to Karasuno. On the sidelines, Akashi notices that Nakoma's defense is strengthening. Nakoma continues to demonstrate their play style by having their blockers restricting Tanaka's inner cross for Yaku to make a perfect receive. Daisho, who is familiar with Nakoma, knows fully well that Nakoma's strength is their ability to deal with opponents' attacks perfectly before counterattacking. He describes Nakoma as a team that is not one to overwhelm the opponents, but rather one that will creep up on you before you realize. Meanwhile, Fukunaga comes in for a back row attack. Nishinoya manages to save it, but the receive goes awry. Kejama quickly moves across the court to coordinate a minus tempo quick with Hinata, who successfully spikes past the unprepared blockers. Karasuno, although unable to successfully deal with Nakoma's attacks, can counterattack with pure force. It's now clear just how different the two teams are. With the point gap widening once again, Kiryu grudgingly acknowledges Kejama's overwhelming skill and presence. Kejama serves, but unlike before, he adds in a side spin that makes the ball curve away from Kai. However, he has yet to perfect the control and sends the ball out of bounds. Immediately after, Lev's serve hits the net and fails to go over. Alisa is embarrassed over her brother's mistake, but Akane explains that Lev was intentionally aiming for a certain spot. Meanwhile, Tanaka's serve is cleanly received, and Kiryu scores with a vicious spike. Next, Yamamoto is up to serve. Tanaka manages to receive it, and Kejama saves it from crossing over the net, tossing to Hinata with one hand. Yaku barely manages to save Hinata's spike, but Asahi immediately slams it down. Kejama tells Tanaka that his earlier attempt at a pass was unnecessary, since it ended up just causing the ball to nearly fly over the net. He adds that any pass that gets the ball near the attack line is good enough for him to set. Karasuno is impressed by Kejama's cool words. Kenma, overhearing, tells his teammates that he's not necessarily trying to compete with Karasuno in every way. The next rally begins with Hinata serving. Fukunaga receives the serve, passing it to Kenma, who sets it to Kiryu. As the ball ricochets off of Tanaka, Kajama quickly crosses the court and sets all the way to Asahi on the left, surprising Nakoma's blockers. Despite Nakoma's best efforts, they fail to return the ball, thereby allowing Karasuno to secure a break. The commentators remark that with Kajama, Karasuno can attack from anywhere on the court. They also note that both teams appear unusually relaxed despite the intensity of the match and being new to the national stage. Nakamata attributes this to the two teams' mutual respect, but he is well aware that one player in particular is an exception to this. Kenma is not considering the weight of this fateful match. He simply wants to defeat Karasuno. Tendo and Goshiki tune into Karasuno's game on a tablet. They agree that Nakoma seems like a frustrating team to play against, considering how often they save attacks that would normally score without any failure. Tendo adds that merely saving a spike isn't the pinnacle of defensive play. Back at the match, Kiryu gets a one-touch on Tsukishima's spike. Fukunaga attacks, but Kajama saves the ball and Nishinoya sets for Asahi. Nakoma prepares to receive, but Asahi spikes the ball straight through the block, a move Sugawara dubs the block crusher. Tendo observes that Asahi's technique involves timing the hit right when the opposing blockers are starting to drop back down. Goshiki says that Asahi did the same move during the later stages of the Inarizaki game, showing that Asahi can pull it off even under pressure. Kenma continues to analyze the match. He considers winning the first set a long shot but wants to persevere so that they can collect more data on Karasuno. Meanwhile, Daichai receives Kiryu's serve but sends the ball flying right above the net. Lev and Kajama end up in a joust with Kajama winning after pushing the ball toward the side. However, Yamamoto flies forward to save it, and Kenma quickly runs forward to set it to Lev, who scores with an extremely high spike. Everybody is taken aback by Kenma's speed while Kajama questions Kenma directly about his mobility. Coach Yukai realizes that Kenma is executing plays on his own now, instead of utilizing the opportunities created by his teammates' receives. Nakamata remarks that Kenma has grown by overcoming stronger opponents and being inspired by their strength. When Yamamoto praises Kenma, Kenma expresses his annoyance at having his lackadaisical self compared to the hardworking Kajama. Nevertheless, he admits to wanting to perform his best whenever he sees an amazing play. The chapter ends with Akane cheering on her team, feeling that they have a good chance to win this set. Daichai receives a ferocious serve from Kiryu. Kajama throws off the blockers by setting to Daichai in the back, who finally scores cleanly against Nakoma. However, Yamamoto immediately fires right back, and it's Kenma's turn to serve. His serve goes straight to Hinata, who is excited to get a serve receive, but Sugawara notices that Hinata is being targeted. Nonetheless, Kajama sets to Tanaka, who spikes past three blockers and scores. Kajama serves. Yamamoto receives it, Kenma sets the ball, and Lev scores. Lev's next serve, which barely passes above the net, is also meant to target Hinata. Kiryu goes straight to the left after the receive and kill blocks Tanaka, tying the score at 23-23. Akane points out that Lev's serve successfully prevented Karasuno's from doing a freak quick attack. Lev's next serve isn't as successful as it hits the net. Immediately after, Tanaka's serve goes out. The score is tied at 24-24. Yamamoto serves, and Tanaka receives it. Kajama and Hinata execute a quick attack from the middle, but Yaku saves the ball, which is slammed down by Kiryu. However, Daichai manages to save it as well, passing it back to Kajama. Kajama sets to Asahi, who prepares to do another block crusher. This time, Nakoma is ready. They back up in anticipation of the ball being sent flying, and Yamamoto receives the ball after it is smashed past the blockers. Nakoma picks up the ball after Asahi's attempted wipe. With a three-man block, Karasuno stops Fukunaga's ensuing spike. Daichai saves the ball from falling, and Kajama then sets to Asahi again. Asahi, seeing how Nakoma have spread themselves out to thwart his attack, goes for a feint, but Fukunaga saves even this ball. As Kenma sets the ball, Hinata accurately predicts that Fukunaga will be unable to spike after making the receive, so he joins in the block on the right. Despite this, Kai spikes past the block at Kajama. Tanaka runs in and passes the ball to Asahi once again. Considering the receivers and the blockers, Asahi spikes, and the ball drops down between the opposing blockers and the net, securing Karasuno a hard-fought point. Both teams marvel at how the other team is constantly working to overcome their own strength, making them incredible and frustrating opponents. Kiryu scores, bringing the score back to a deuce. Karasuno collectively recall their past failures against Nakoma, which is why this set holds so much weight for them. Determined to score, they pull off a synchronized attack. After Kiryu gets a one-touch off of Tsukishima, Kai saves the ball and Kenma passes it to Fukunaga. Fukunaga's spike targets Kajama, but Nishinoya is there to toss to Asahi. This time, Asahi's spike goes past the blockers, but Yaku saves it. Kenma, seeing the ball close to the net, positions himself for a dump before shifting to set the ball. Karasuno is, however, fouled for contacting the ball when Kenma was not trying to attack. While the onlookers from Nakoma High think that Kenma just got lucky, Kajama recognizes the move as the same one Atsumu used in their match the day before. Kenma's success bait of the Karasuno blocks brings Nakoma to set point. Tendo remarks that the members of Karasuno must have gotten careless in their haste to close out the set. Next, Kai serves. Karasuno attempt another synchronized attack, but Nakoma barely manages to return it, to Karasuno's frustration. They go for another synchronized attack, and again Nakoma saves it. This time, Kenma gets the ball and tosses it to Karasuno's side. Karasuno prepares for one more synchronized attack, but then the ball simply lands on their side of the court without anyone picking it up. Everyone is shocked, including the commentators, but points out the obvious communication error by Karasuno. Nakoma has surprised everyone by stealing away the first set. The commentators analyze how Kenma returned the ball to a point that fell in Kajama's run-up path, which blindsided the other players who were all preparing to attack. Kenma has used Karasuno's eagerness to make an offensive play against them. Against all expectations, Nakoma takes the first set in their game against Karasuno, a team that has a reputation for taking down powerhouses like Shirotarizawa and Inarizaki. While the two teams change court ahead of the second set, Kenma compliments Hinata for his improvements and receives. Hinata is delighted at being acknowledged for his newfound skills in receiving. Afterwards, Karasuno discusses their game plan for the second set. They have noticed that Nakoma has been targeting Hinata with their serves to seal off the minus tempo quick. Sugawara mentions that Nakoma is using the same strategy as the one Karasuno used against Eren during the Inarizaki match. Tanaka points out how hard it would be for Hinata to receive near the net, prepare for a run-up, and spike in a short time. Daichai explains that a standard receive in the back line is much easier since he would have enough time to join in for an attack. There seems to be no immediate solution to the dilemma. Nevertheless, Nishinoya is determined to help as much as possible and says to his teammates that the back line will take care of all receives other than those aimed at Hinata. Lastly, Daichai warns the team to watch out for Kiru's serve. Meanwhile, Nakoma is also planning out their game strategy. Kenma instructs his teammates to take as many points as they can through serves and to limit Hinata from scoring even if it's only by 2 or 3 points. Once the second set begins, Nakoma is revealed to have made a rare rotation change, in which the setter is no longer starting out at the back row. Fukunaga becomes the first to serve for Nakoma.